Ouch! Hi, I'm John from Samples to Symphonies. My recent video on realism talked about moving from the mechanical to the human, from players who sound like clones of each other, all with the same thinking and interpretation, to players who are skilled, creative individuals. Today we're going to expand one of the tips from that video. Perfect the accompaniment timbre in emotional hotspots. That tip is about focus. If you had the time and energy, you could perfect the timbre at every moment. If you don't, then the advice is to find the emotional hotspots and then put your effort into the accompaniment. That is, not the foreground, which is probably the melody, and not any prominent middle ground like a rhythmic drive, a counter melody, or the bass line perhaps, but the harmonic background. Future videos on emotion will give more justification. Here I'm concentrating on the tip itself. Emotional hotspots come in different ways for different emotions, but one thing you can guarantee: if there's a building sense of anticipation in the music, if it's not meandering nor rigid, but there's a rising current, the melody and harmony find their direction, propelling you towards a destination, then you're in an emotional hotspot. Just to show we're not simply talking about big romantic moments, here's a piece that is cascading towards its climax. Here it's harmonised for string quartet. Not very inspired harmony, but that's what the composer, in this case arranger, in this case me, has given us. The idea is we don't mess with the dynamics of the melody or any counter melody, which may for example be a prominent bass line, but work the accompaniment texture as the climax approaches. That often means flowing the timbre around the melody. Hard to do in this example because it's strings which have a fairly homogeneous texture. In fact, it's nice in a full orchestra to give the melody space by concentrating on instruments of a different family. Can't do that here, but we can still trade between parts by hairpinning them differently. A second example came right at the beginning of this video. I hope you were at least a little bit angry at the way that opening music cut off right at the moment when you expect it to reach its destination. Most of the work was done by the composer, of course, but I'm going to explain how I flowed the timbre towards the climax. Even if this music doesn't touch you as it does me, I hope I can at least hint at why the dynamics of accompanying parts are so important. Here's the score. It's a couple of minutes into the fourth movement of Dvorak's Ninth Symphony from the New World. We're in the middle of a clarinet solo. Here it is. It started a few bars before on the previous page, and there's a response from this figure in the cellos here. There are also some tremolos going on in the other strings. But then halfway across the page, things change. The clarinet hands over the melody to the first violins. The cellos are joined by the basses on that responding figure. And meanwhile, everything thickens with the addition of more woodwind, with the French horn and the other parts in the strings. So really the second half of this page is all about leading up to this chord here. There's a build through these 8 bars that's exactly the kind of flow to an inevitable climax I was just describing. Zooming in on the strings now, and what I'm showing you is the original score for these 8 bars of this crucial passage. Violins at the top, double basses at the bottom. And now I overlay what I'm actually playing in Musescore. So we've got the top 3 staves there, violin 1, violin 2, viola. And you see in the box the interpretation of that. There's not a deal of difference at this stage, though you can see that already the second violins and violas are going to taper towards the end of the piece. This is about making space, letting the first violins, melody, and cellos and basses, counter melody, dominate the string texture. We're going to do most of the accompaniment timbre flow in contrasting sections of the orchestra. In the second half of the passage, I've made a little change to the lead line. The slur has come off the first violins in the penultimate bar, so those notes stand clear. They don't slur together. Meanwhile, you can see I'm bringing down the second violins and violas even more to make space. Let's look at the bottom lines of the strings now. Not a lot of change here, recognizing that the cello line is a kind of lead, just bringing it down a little, and the double basses down also. In the second half, also not much change. Going up to the top few staves now, and here we've got flute, oboes, clarinets, bassoons, and then 2 horns and 2 more horns. Dvorak is beautifully flowing the timbre here. Mainly it's a double reed accompaniment alongside a French horn. Here's the way I play the oboes and clarinet staves. Dynamics much more detailed now. Articulations added too. Then here in the second half, still just showing those 3 staves, oboes, clarinets, bassoons, even more going on as parts move in and out. Some accents added. Also making space in the penultimate bar for the horn line to come through. Not showing that here, obviously there's things going on in the horns just below here. So what we'll do now is zoom back to the full thing and go to the mixer to turn down the lead lines. I'm going to turn off the violins 1, cellos and double basses, leaving the rest of the texture. And what you should hear is instruments coming in and out of prominence, the timbre flow that will help propel the melody when we bring it back. All that remains is to hear the whole thing put together, and this time I'll give you a concluding chord. Thank you for watching and listening.